Can we please talk about UFC 280 coming our way this Saturday night from Abu Dhabi? I'm excited. Are you excited? This is an exciting card, to be fair. It's ridiculous. There are more great fights on here that you could shake a stick at. Shout out to Beneil Dariush and Mateusz Gamrot. That's going to be a real fun one. You've got Belal Muhammad against Sean Brady as well. That's a really good fight. You've got Volkan Oezdemir taking on Nikita Krylov. That's a really good fight. That's on the undercard. But there's just so many good fights. But I've had to be brutal with this. I've picked out the three that I'm looking forward to the most. And it's the three at the top of the card. They've really stacked this card correctly. Because you're going from Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley at bantamweight. And then into the bantamweight title shot, Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. And then the main event, lightweight title, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. I have decided to break those three fights down. The Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw one, that's over on my Patreon, so if you want to see that breakdown, go and check out that one. But outside of that, what I'm going to be doing here is basically looking into each fighter. So if you want to learn a bit more about these guys that are fighting in these fights, what they do well, what they don't do well, what certain openings that might be available to them in these matchups, then stay with me for the Burt Locker Fights in 15 for UFC 280. Right, so we are starting off in the bantamweight division. Peter Yan against Sean O'Malley. Now, this is a really interesting fight because finally, Sean O'Malley is being put in against one of the big dogs, and Peter Yan, he is one of the big dogs in that division. He's really good. Former champion. He's about as good as it gets at bantamweight, so it's going to be a real test for Sean O'Malley here. Tail of the tape, we've got 16-3 for Peter Yan, 15-1 for his opponent, Sugar Sean O'Malley. That one, of course, being the leg kick TKO loss to Marlon Chito Vera, which I do like. He says that it's not a loss. I think it is. Look, Marlon threw that kick with the intention of hurting the leg, and he did so, and that meant that Sean O'Malley couldn't continue. That's a loss. That's a loss. Anyway, got 5'7" for Peter Yan, 5'11" for Sean O'Malley, and you've got a 72-inch reach for Sean O'Malley as well, so he's enjoying about a 5-inch reach advantage over Peter Yan. Now, that's going to be a slight issue for Peter Yan, I think, because look, if you're looking at it, Sean O'Malley, he fights long very well. And he does this thing where he did it against Wineland, where and it's interesting because he's got the length, right, but he throws some of his shots short to make his opponents feel like he's further away than he is, right? It's a really good strategy, actually. There's a few fighters that do it. But basically, it's so that when he's throwing out the double jab, he's not pushing his opponent outside of his range, because his cross, that's the danger punch. Like his rear cross, Sean O'Malley, because he's a switch stance fighter, both of these guys are switch stance guys, but the rear hand cross, he kind of steps over with it, and he throws it perfectly, so he gets a really good amount of power on it, and that's the one that really causes people problems, and it allows him to stay long as well, which is going to be really vital against somebody like Peter Yan. You got to remember, Sean O'Malley has a 62% accuracy rate, and he's got the highest strike differential in the bantamweight division. He throws a lot, and he's accurate. Those are the two takeaways from those stats. Now I'm going to go into what Peter Yan does well. Peter Yan, he does on occasion get a little bit impatient. But the one thing overall that I like about Peter Yan is he's a nasty piece of work. And what I mean by that is that he's in the right job, because he enjoys hurting people. I fully think that knee to Sterling was fully intentional. Full-on intentional. There's no way that wasn't it. He knew exactly what he was throwing. I think he was maybe frustrated with how the fight was going, that he hadn't put him away yet, and he just got pissed off, and he wanted to hurt Sterling. So he did. And he takes a lot of pleasure in hurting people. He's a nasty piece of work. But that's good. That's a quality that you want in a mixed martial artist. That's what you want in a cage fighter. Because He's going to go out there and he will take pleasure in his work. Yan also has excellent defense. His rear hand very rarely drops from his chin. He's always playing around. He's always putting that lead hand out, probing with the jab, the rear, and that always comes back as well. But if his opponent throws, that comes back, his rear hand's there, and he's always protecting himself. His guard is tight. He's got one of the best boxing striking guards in the bantamweight division, if not in the UFC. He's very, very good defensively, very sound. So that negates a lot of the way he gets inside as well. He uses head movement to get inside, and that's going to be vital against somebody like Sugar Sean O'Malley, because he needs it. And when he's inside, Peter Yan, he really does damage. His hands are heavy. He has got heavy hands. I do think that there are going to be times in this fight where he is going to hurt Sean O'Malley. That's probably going to happen. We're going to really see how Sean O'Malley kind of weathers adversity, as it were. Yan, his footwork is brilliant. It really is. He's so good at getting inside without taking too many risks, but his footwork's also brilliant when it goes to the ground as well. The way he circles round and takes the back is really, really nice. He usually then lands ground and pound rather than going for submissions, but it's just the footwork. He's very aware. He's very spatially aware at all times, and that's something that he does very, very well. So he does that well, and he also clinches really well. One thing that I would say might be a concern for Sean O'Malley is that it is the clinch. Because Yan's very physical. He'll get hold of your head, he'll pull it down, and then he throws like the knees, but he kind of whips out the kick. As if the knee comes short, he will whip the leg out for the kick. He's done that on a few occasions. It does look like it does look like it's something that's trained, rather, and he just. And it means that you pull your head up out of the way, you're going to pull back. If someone pulls your head forward, you're going to pull back. And then he throws the knee up and extends it to the kick, and you're in real trouble. And with the whole braid thing, that's going to make it much easier for him to grab hold and get leverage on the head. So watch out for that. You could very well see Peter Yan hanging off Sean O'Malley's neck and pulling him into knees, things like that. So for me, like, the problem is getting into that position against Sean O'Malley, because as I said before, O'Malley is excellent at keeping that range. His rear cross is absolutely spot on. It's a brilliant punch, and he actually he tests people with feints as well. He really tests their reactions. Sean O'Malley is a very clever fighter in that respect. Again, Wineland is a great fight to go back and watch, because Eddie Wineland, whilst he might not be a huge name, he is a good fighter. And the fact that O'Malley was able to just kind of make him look like an amateur in there, it's really telling, because you see what he was doing. He's throwing punches, but he's not. He's just feinting, and he watches how Wineland, where his head goes each time, and it was going the same way every time. That's what set him up for the cross and then eventually the uppercut, and that was all she wrote. Is he going to be able to do that against a really wily, crafty fighter like Peter Yan? We're gonna see, because don't forget, Yan does occasionally get frustrated. He might start biting on those feints. He might start giving O'Malley the information that he requires, and I think that might really happen. So, for me, defensively, Yan is a different beast to Wineland, because his guard is quite a lot better. But I do think that if you frustrate Peter Yan, he's going to give that information. He's going to give Sean O'Malley those reads. So for me, I'm taking Sean O'Malley by knockout. Now, it's mainly for the odds, honestly, because look, make no mistake, this could go either way, because Yan is a huge step up in competition for Sean O'Malley. For me, I am taking the knockout for O'Malley, because it's like 5-1. So that's good enough odds for me to roll the dice. Especially, it's all very well and good speculating on this now, because it might go the wrong way. But like, you could very well see Sean O'Malley just starching Peter Yan, because again, what concerns me about Peter Yan is he gets frustrated on occasion, and in that frustration, he may give away the reads that Sean O'Malley needs to land that big cross, that lovely punch that he does so well. So O'Malley, knockout, 5-1. That's perfect. This next fight, Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw for the bantamweight title of the world. This one is on my Patreon channel, so if you would like to head over to the Burt Locker on Patreon to see this breakdown, please head over there. I'll see you there. Then we move on to the main event of the evening. Main event of the evening. Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. So, tail of the tape on this one. You've got Charles Oliveira. They're both 5'10". Charles Oliveira's got a 4-inch reach, well, 3.5-inch reach advantage. And that might be really, really useful, actually. You've got 33, 8-1 for Charles Oliveira, 22-1 for Islam Makhachev. So, obviously, the experience definitely lands in the favour of Charles Oliveira. And you know what? It's just his career has been a tale of two halves, really. You know, he's missed weight a few times. Generally, when he misses weight, he then performs really badly. Because I think he missed weight against Felder and got battered, didn't he? And who else did he miss weight against? He missed weight again. But it's back when he was trying to make featherweight. He's now gone up to lightweight. And the thing is like he didn't really miss weight in his last fight. I think the scales were off. Apparently, there was something wrong with him, and he missed weight by half a pound. Look, that's not the end of the world. There's some people that are saying that his weight is a concern, saying that he looks too big and that he might run into problems again, like if the weight cut is bad. But I don't know. He looks about the same to me. And he's been consistently making weight more often than not. Like I said, the last one was a bit of an anomaly, and he only missed weight by half a pound. I don't think his weight is too much of a concern. Although you've got to bear in mind he's out of his comfort zone. He's going to Abu Dhabi. It's a long plane ride, everything like that. You know, because people were concerned that he hadn't actually landed in Abu Dhabi like 2 weeks before the fight. But you know what? To be fair, that was what was the downfall of Cain Velasquez, really, when he fought Verdum in Mexico City. He didn't go there long enough to acclimatise. I don't know what the altitude's like in Abu Dhabi, but it might be best to acclimatise to the environment. He hasn't been there for that long. I think he's just been choking lions from what I can see on his Instagram. But anyway, the thing is, this is an interesting fight stylistically. We'll start off with the striking. The striking, I think that Charles Oliveira should have a slight advantage, realistically, because he fights like a berserker. His Muay Thai is vicious, but that's because he's not afraid to get taken down. Now, Makhachev, he's much slower, he's more deliberate, but from a technical standpoint, his striking might be better, his kicks especially. Well, I feel like Islam's striking is slightly underrated because his grappling is so good. People just see him as this dominant, like he'll take you down and beat the fuck out of your grappler. But actually, his kicks are really good. Thing is, if Charles comes out with that kind of Muay Thai kind of style, that lead leg is going to be there to be kicked. It just will be. And it'll be interesting to see if Makhachev takes advantage of that. But I do think on the feet, that the Oliveira will probably get the better of it. He's got the reach advantage, and as I said, he's just not afraid of being taken down. So he will throw things and take risks that other people perhaps wouldn't. And that's what makes Oliveira a different beast for Islam Makhachev. Because one thing that Makhachev, it's not Makhachev's fault necessarily, but you have to look at the level of competition. The best person that Makhachev has fought by a long way is Dan Hooker. Whereas you look at the murderer's row that Charles Oliveira has taken on, recently, Justin Gaethje's, your Michael Chandler's, your Dustin Poirier's, right? Just the fact that he's beaten those three kind of back to back to back is absolutely ridiculous. That's a very high level of competition. I don't think that Makhachev has had that level of competition. It'll be interesting to see how good he is and how he tests, how he fares against somebody who is as good as Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is one of my favourite fighters in the world. He's been around for forever. Because people, when he fought Tony Ferguson, people were talking about how, this is like the new school beating like the old guard. It's like Oliveira's been fighting in the UFC for longer than Tony Ferguson. That's how long he's been fighting in the UFC. It wasn't the new guard beating the old. It was the old guard beating the old. Oliveira is the old guard. He is OG. He is one of the longest serving fighters on that roster. Trust. He is. He's been there. He's had ups and downs in his career, but he just seems to have become this much more complete fighter, which is dangerous. It's scary. He's so scary on the ground, it really is. So the problem is, I'm reluctant to see Charles go to, because things he might be tempted to just go to his back and just have and see if he can submit Islam Makhachev from his guard. However, percentage-wise, that's probably not a good move, because I got sent a video by a good mate of mine, Lewis. Shout out, Lewis. So I'll see if I can find the video. I'll put the link in the description. But it's very interesting talking about percentages of submissions over the whole history of the UFC. And my God, it is. I mean, rear naked choke wins by a landslide. I think it's just literally. I think they had it on neck submissions. Like, protect your neck, because it's something like 90% of submissions are done on the neck. Like 90%. And then you've got like the rest, you've got your arm bars, leg locks, things like that. And a startling majority of those neck submissions are rear naked chokes from taking the back from top position. Like, getting submissions from top position far outweighs getting submissions, landing them from the bottom. So percentage-wise, going to back is not a brilliant move. However, I would say that Charles is a bit of an outlier in that respect, because look, he's got a very active guard. He'll at least, and the thing, what Charles could do is he could go to his back and then get a sweep on Makhachev. That's not completely out of the question. But I do think that if he's going to get the submission, he's probably going to catch a guillotine from a takedown, because I think if he catches Islam, the only way Makhachev is going to shoot in without protecting his neck is if he's rocked. But I do think that there's a good chance that Oliveira could rock him. That could easily be on the cards. The problem is if he doesn't leave the neck out and he gets the takedown, like Islam, because whilst Charles is not afraid of being taken down, by the same token, I would say that Islam is not afraid of being Charles's guard, because for percentage-wise, he's going to be absolutely fine. He's probably too slick to get caught with most things from the guard. But then again, you've got to wonder about, has he got anybody as high level, like jiu-jitsu-wise, anybody as high level as Charles Oliveira in his training camp? I would say it's going to be tough to find that guy, you know, in all honesty. So Charles Oliveira throwing up those submissions is not the same as most other people. Charles Oliveira is he's already thinking steps ahead when he's on the ground. He's a magician. Islam's going to follow that rule one, protect your neck. He will follow that, right? Now, what would be interesting is if Charles shoots first. Because he often does. Most of the time in his fights, it will be Charles that initiates the takedowns. And then that's when he creates these scrambles where he's got this weird knack for jumping onto his opponent's back. And we've seen it a couple of times where he just backpacks on them and then he gets the rear naked choke. So for me, I'm going back and forth on this one. Don't get me wrong, I am fully in support of Charles Oliveira, just because for me, he's an old school OG fighter and I absolutely love him. Like, I'm just watching his career go from, you know, highs and lows and then rocket into the title. The way he fights is absolutely insane. 3 decisions out of all those fights. The rest, he just finishes. He's a finishing machine. He's exciting. His fights are just exciting to watch. And the thing is like, one other thing that I would note is that when Charles gets clipped, he doesn't panic. He's just like, right, okay, well, that's fine. I can find the submission. I can find my way back. Whereas Islam Makhachev, he got flatlined by Rocky Martins, and he got flatlined. So if he gets clipped, he's going to go back and, you know, that's going to be a real trigger point for him. At least it could be. Anyway, it could be. I'm clutching at straws to that last, but either way, I feel like Oliveira, if he's going to grab a submission, it's probably going to be a neck submission, right? But for me, it's going to be either a rear naked choke, because those are statistically the most likely submission that anybody's going to get on anybody. And Charles Oliveira does a rear naked choke particularly well. But I could also see him grabbing kind of a guillotine, or even grabbing a neck submission from like the front gut, from the north-south position. Because if Islam's going to shoot in and Charles Oliveira defends correctly, then the head is going to be there. And he could then grab like either a Das or an Anaconda. I'm going for Anaconda here because basically, if you go up here, you've got like these are like the outcomes here. I'm thinking Charles rear naked choke 550, so 4.5 to 1. The guillotine is 7 to 1. The Anaconda is 13 to 1. Those are the three that I'm going for Charles. Those three outcomes because I like those odds, and I think that those are the three most likely submissions that he will be getting on somebody who fights in the style that Islam Makhachev does. Now, Islam Makhachev, for me, he's got fewer ways to win this fight. Charles has 1,000 ways to win this fight, whereas Islam has 2 really good ways of winning this fight, if that makes sense. And those 2 really good ways of winning this fight is the TKO with punches, and that's at 5s. And you've got the rear naked choke, which is 5s as well. 4 to 1 plus 5s on the decimals. So I'm taking each of those 2 outcomes as well, and watch none of them come off now. This is just betting for fun. So those are my bets on that one. I've also added Charles by submission to my ACCA as well. So you've got for my ACCA, O'Malley KO, TJ KO, Charles submission. That is 134 to 1. If that's not worth a quid, I don't know what is. Either way, it's going to be fun seeing this unfold. I'm excited for these night fights. I'm sure you are as well. If you're an MMA fan, you're probably watching this, but it's going to be really fun. Obviously, when the dust settles next week, we'll have a look at who won, who lost, and how the bets went on. So until then, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.